Good afternoon. Today is the 27th day of December 2015, and we are here with Aniruddha Sircar, lovingly known by Ashramites as Babu. Namaskar, Babu. It is a special honor to have you with us.
The honor is mine.
Tell us the first question we always ask everyone. When did you first come to the ashram?
I came in 1944 for the August Darshan.
How old were you then?
I was 11 years old.
11 years old. And did you go out again?
Yes, I went out almost immediately because that was a very short trip and I had to go back to Calcutta to continue with my studies, and I was still in school at that time. And then after that, next year, it so happened that my aunt was my guardian. She was in Pondicherry and she broke her leg. She slipped and broke her leg. So my father and I had to come to look after her. So I came in 45, and then after that again I went back. But in 45 December, I felt sick. I was very, very sick, and I had typhoid. And my aunt now went back to Calcutta again to look after me because she was extremely fond of me. And she went there, and then she decided, after I recovered, to bring me permanently to Chennai or Madras at that time, known as Madras. And so I came there, but then they were thinking in which school to put me. And at that time we came here for the April Darshan, came to Pondicherry. So again 46.
So you were now 13
I was now 13, yes.
and you
years
saw
old.
Sri Aurobindo.
Oh yes. From 44 I've been seeing Sri Aurobindo, and I have been very lucky to have had two books signed by him, and my name used to be Aurobindo. That was the name by which I was christened in Calcutta. And there is a story behind the name also. It is that I have been very lucky to have been associated with a very well-known theatre of Calcutta
Oh, this is when you were very young.
when I was very young.
Oh, can tell
In
us
fact-
about that.
In fact, I was brought up in the theatre.
I see.
It's almost born and brought up. So I don't remember necessarily the early days, but my first memory goes back to about when I was 3 or 4 years old. And then I used to be the only child in that whole group. It's a huge place because we had our living quarters, and behind that there was the main theatre. Then there was a garden adjacent to the theatre. Then there was a lobby. Then the dressing rooms and all. Then the auditorium. It's a huge place, and I was absolutely lord and master of the whole place because I had freedom of the whole area. And again, I was very, very lucky that all the great writers, poets, dramatists, novelists, they used to come to our theatre. And they used to treat me not as a little child. They always accepted me as though I was one of them. Usually people tell children to go out and play, but nobody ever did that. And so I used to participate. Participate means how much could I understand, but I used to be there in all their discussions and everything. I didn't understand much, but I enjoyed their company. And they were really wonderful people. At least as far as I was concerned, everybody loved me and sort of pampered me. And among the actors, there were many um, very learned men. Some of them were professors, some of them were Sanskrit scholars,
Oh,
and they took it on themselves to teach me on their own. So one gentleman I still remember, every day he would catch hold of me, teach me Sanskrit sloka, and said, tomorrow I'll come and listen to you.
oh.
So in the meantime I would learn by heart, next day I would repeat it to him, and then he would give me another one.
Now you were about what, 10 years old, 8 years
No,
old?
no. I was only
Very young.
about 5.
5.
About 5.
Oh.
And
You mentioned you had told me last time when we met that there was a very wonderful man you met.
yes. Well, actually, most of them were very wonderful, but 2 of them were extremely close to me. One was a great dramatist of those days. His name was Sachindra Sengupta. And the other one is even more famous. He is Qazi Nazrul Islam. And he, posthumously, he was taken as the national poet of Bangladesh because he was Muslim and he came from Bangladesh. So at that time, naturally, there was no Pakistan, nothing. But then after Bangladesh became free, they took him as their national poet. Now, although he was Muslim, he had a Hindu wife, and he wrote some wonderful songs and poems on Radha and Krishna and Kali
In
Bengali.
In Bengali.
In Bengali. He didn't write in English, in Bengali. And Shablu knew about him, and towards the end of his life, he had become mad, not violent, but he just couldn't speak. And so the most important, and couldn't speak and couldn't write, most probably it was Parkinson's. And Shablu spoke about him to many people, and Shablu had even said that he was advancing on the spiritual path quite a lot, but then he was very impatient and he was trying to pull the force down, and that had a reaction.
Now he was very close to you.
Close to me means he used to tease me a lot, and especially because I was very fond of the dramatists whom I mentioned, and they were all friends, and he used to tell me that the dramatist has an accident or something, and I used to feel very bad. But then the dramatist would come, and I would jump on him and tear his hair and all that. But that was all part of the fun. And then I saw him. I suppose at that time I didn't quite realize, but now in retrospect, I realized what a tremendous power of concentration he had. Tremendous, is unbelievable. That is, he would drop in and some drama would be produced. So they needed in those days, a drama could not be complete unless there were some dances and songs.
And music.
And
yes,
music.
yes.
So that was very important. So then my uncle, he would tell the poet Nazrul, they used to call him Kaji Sahab. Kaji Sahab. So Kaji Sahab, this is the situation in the play, and we need a song for that. Then immediately he said, all right, and he would pull the harmonium, and before that I have to describe the place before I go forward.
Okay.
Because we had a huge hall, and the hall was covered with a thick mattress from wall to wall, and all kinds of activities would be going on constantly. People would be playing cards, people would be chatting, people would be discussing plays, people would be talking about politics. So in the midst of all that, he would sit down, he would call my mother. She was only about 18 at that time, or not even that. And no, not 18, maybe about 20. And he would call my mother and said, make some pan for me. So he would take the pan, he would chew on the betel, and he would be humming and playing on the harmonium. And in an hour or two, he would make the song ready with the score.
With all that was going on
All
around
that was
him.
going on, and nobody would give him any special consideration. So, and this used to happen regularly. Then, how I got my name, I told you the dramatist Sachindranath Sengupta. He had been in Barendra Kumar Ghosh's group. Not as active perhaps as the others, but he was very much there. So he was very close to Barendra Kumar Ghosh. And then when I was born, and when I was about 6 months old, all these things of course I've been told. Then they were thinking of giving me names. And because they were all poets and dramatists and all, each one was suggesting some beautiful name. Okay, very poetic names. But then this gentleman said, no, we'll name him Aurobindo because he is the greatest man. And if not anything, he will try to become like Sri Aurobindo.
Oh, how beautiful.
And that's how I got the name Aurobindo. And in my school and everywhere I was known as Aurobindo. But once I came here and became a permanent member of the ashram, then Dilip Kumar Roy and Nalinikanta Gupta, Nalinda, they said that it's very difficult to call him by his proper name. How to call him Aurobindo, since we are the disciples. So we must have a name. And then they, especially Dilipda, said, but the name should have enough, solemnity in it.
Oh.
So not Aurobindo, but something equally solemn. And they suggested 3 or 4 names. Out of them 2 I heard about. One was Amitabha, the name of Buddha, and the other one was Aniruddha. And then mother, it seems, chose Aniruddha.
Oh, mother chose it.
Mother chose Aniruddha. And since then, I am known as Aniruddha.
What a special childhood you had. Oh.
But before that, I would like to tell you something
Yes.
about Aniruddha, which at that time I did not know. Of course, I knew that Aniruddha was a mythological personage. He was Sri Krishna's grandson. And there was a very romantic story involved about him. I'm not going to tell you the story. But later I came to know that Sri Aurobindo was very fond of the name Aniruddha. And when they were in Calcutta and they were bringing out Dharma and Karma Yogin, at that time it seems, but these are all hearsay, nothing authentic, it seems Sri Aurobindo had given names from Mahabharata to all the people.
Oh.
Some were called Yudhishthir and so on. And he himself took the name Aniruddha. So that is a great thing. Then later also I found that Sri Aurobindo had written something very special about Aniruddha and the special qualities of Aniruddha. Not that I have those qualities, but Sri Aurobindo had written a lot about that. And only one thing, maybe something I've got, I go after too many details. I have this bad habit of whatever I do, I try to do in as much detail as possible. And that apparently is one of the qualities of Aniruddha. All right, now you're asking something?
No, just mentioning such, just marveling at such a childhood that you
I
had.
know it was wonderful. I really, I never think of having another childhood and all that, but that portion of my childhood I'd love to have again and again, because although I was born in a kind of upper middle class family, but I was treated, I think, better than any prince. You just imagine a whole theatre full of people, from the highest to the lowest, pampering me. And one good thing is that I never, misused the attention they give me. I was never demanding or anything like that. But then I did something very bad, unknowingly, of course. It was that whenever a new play used to be produced in our theatre, then the hero's costume, they used to make a miniature version for me. So I used to go about wearing that. And then there used to, whatever weapons they used, one smaller version would be given to me. So, and because I had that whole area, so I remember my childhood, I used to go about shooting arrows. I had bow and arrow, and there was nobody there, so nobody would be harmed, and I would be shooting arrows. So that kind of thing. But it was really, really a lovely childhood. And then there were these ups and downs. From there, the theatre failed, and then we became a kind of middle class family. And
Well, the theatre closed.
they closed down. Because one can't make money with theatre. But before that, the bad thing that I did, let me tell you.
Yes.
These people, that is the dramatists and all, were still under the British. Naturally, at that time, it was 1939 or so, 38, 39, were still under the British. And a very important police station was absolutely next door to the theatre. Okay? And my playmates, some of them, were from the police station. Okay? Now, at that time, there was that freedom movement was also very much there. But it was naturally suppressed because most of the leaders had either died or had been arrested. Gandhiji was doing his work, but that was, especially in Bengal, not much importance was given, I think. But these people, these dramatists and all, who had connection with Sriaurobindo, they were writing plays. Always, talking about the greatness of ancient India or of Bengal. And in that way, they were sort of making people aware that we are not a kind of backboneless nation. We can become free. But that was being done in a very quiet manner. And at that time, my friend, that Satyendra Sengupta, he wrote a play called Naradevata. Naradevata, that is man-god. If you translate it literally, man-god. That is, God who has become man, or man who can become like God. So that play. And it was quite a risky play, risky in the sense, not in a bad sense, that the British wouldn't like it. So they knew about it, but even then they decided to produce it.
They allowed it.
They allowed it. Now the thing is, the rehearsals had been going on, and I used to be present in all the rehearsals. So I knew the roles by heart.
All the roles.
Almost all, or many of them, the important roles. Some of the other I knew which are important roles. And then on the first night, and on that night, the police commissioner next door, he had been invited because they had to sort of pass as a kind of censor. So they had all been invited, and the play was going on, and it was the auditorium was absolutely full, and because the plays used to be very long in those days, 4 or 5 hours.
Oh,
So they used to have intervals, 2 intervals. So the first interval came, and my aunt was there behind the curtain, and she heard a lot of clapping and a lot of disturbance in the auditorium. She couldn't understand what was going on. So she parted the drop scene and she looked out and she found that all the audience, they were looking up at one of the boxes and they were clapping. Then she also looked up and she found that I was standing there on a chair. And the most dangerous dialogues I was giving out. So she sent a servant to go from behind, pick me bodily up and remove me from there.
how old were you then?
I was only about 6, I think, 5 or 6. So removed me from there.
They-
And that was the beginning and end of my theatrical career. But the dramatist, that was the interesting thing, because they had to close that play. They had to stop that play.
Oh, they did.
They did.
The British.
Because the police commissioner said that I can't allow it. Because if a small boy can get inspired like this, then what will happen to the country? So they stopped it. But can you imagine that I was not taken to task at all? It was just because, it meant a tremendous loss, financial loss.
Yes.
But then nobody took me to task, only I used to call him brother. Say, oh, brother, you stopped my play. That was his comment. And the
Yeah.
that is of the past.
Then you came finally to Pondicherry.
Then, after the theatre closed, then my aunt shifted to Madras because my uncle had a job. Actually, he started a business. He was a very poor businessman, but he started a business. And I was brought to Madras, to Chennai. In those days, it was Madras. And they had heard about the ashram. So my uncle came for the April darshan alone.
What year was that?
But
What year was that?
that was 1944. 44 April. He came alone. He came alone just to see the place, and then he came and told us everything. How mother came out and on the balcony and how people would stand and all that. So we came for the for the August darshan. Came for the August darshan, and at that time, I didn't even know that there was a school or playground in the ashram. But one thing I found, that there were lots and lots of books in the library. At the time, the library used to be in the ashram main building. It was spread out over that area. It was known as Library House. So, and I always loved books. So I used to sit there and nobody stopped me. I used to take out books and I used to read. And then I told my uncle and aunt that I would like to stay here. They said, we can't allow you because you have to finish your schooling. So I went back, and then the rest I told you. So we came in 1946, and this time I came to know that there was playground and there was school. So I said I would like to stay here. Then they said, but what is the highest class in our school? It was only class 5. Well, I was already in class 9.
Oh,
So that means 4 years I would be losing. So they said that we can't allow that, because at least we want that you should have a degree and at least pass matriculation. So then they decided that they would take me back. But then I told them that can't I study outside and stay in the ashram? Now that was not very common. But when I said yes, that's a possibility, they said, and they asked mother about it. And mother said yes, why not? So then I was to study in Calvary College, preparing for my matriculation, and I was a member of the playground, and I used to play there. And mother, that was again another thing where I was very, very lucky, and that was I had my own room. I was only 13. And very interestingly, how the whole circle has gone round, the room used to be the opposite, Dr. Raichora's house garage. At the time, this house was not there. It was a two-story building, and where the garage is now, that used to be my room.
I want to ask you if what you recall of the first time you saw Sri Aurobindo.
You know, that question many people have asked.
I'm sure.
But the thing is, you have to also remember, I was only 11.
11, yes.
Only 11.
Yes.
And we saw Sri Aurobindo almost in passing. Because the thing is that people didn't want him to get tired. So we used to just go past him, go in front of him in the darshan room.
No pranam or anything?
No,
I see.
no pranam at all. We couldn't even stand too long.
Prithvi Singh, Noran Singh told me that they did pranam, but that was much earlier.
Much earlier.
Yes.
They're senior to me, and also they came at a time when things were much more, there were not many people, and things were much more relaxed. And also, Sri Aurobindo often used to give interview. I mean, not often, sometimes used to give interview. But mostly it was mother. But then, in those days, because the ashram was very small, so each disciple was given a fixed time, allotted a fixed time, when he used to go and stand before Sri Aurobindo. I don't know how much time they took. I don't suppose much time. But not like us, that used to just march past in front of him.
And that was the same from 46 through 50?
Through 50.
I see.
From 44 to 50.
From 44 to 50, yes. And it was
in my
always the
knowledge.
same marching past.
That's it. And not really marching, was to go in a casual manner.
So
but
when you were, let's say 44, you were 13?
No, whatever I was 11.
11, right. So 6 years, you were 16 or 17 the last time you saw Sri Aurobindo?
I was 17 years.
And do you remember
That part I remember very much. It was as though something cataclysmic has happened. I remember I got the news at 5 o'clock in the morning that he had terribly dejected, and I remember that for a while I couldn't even stand. I sat down, and then after that we joined the line. But then very soon we got involved in work because we had to dig the samadhi and all that. There used to be a kind of altar there in that under the service tree. And they used to arrange flower pots in a very beautiful place.
Oh.
When Sri Aurobindo was there, that was our sort of playground. We used to play there. And we had a wonderful time at that time. Because as children, we used to see mother quite a few times. So, would you like to hear that part?
Surely.
So it is that on our birthdays, we used to go to mother at 5:30 in the morning, only on birthdays. But there were some others who had other program. It was not the same program for everybody. But I'm telling you for the general people. So at 5:30 in the morning, we would go to mother. Mother would stand just, as you go up to Sri Aurobindo's room, there is that door.
Yes.
with the keep the flowers and all, and the photograph is kept there. So mother used to stand there at the door, and then used to bow to mother, and she would give us some flower and come away. Not come away, not go home, but wait for balcony. So at 6 o'clock she used to come for the balcony darshan. Balcony darshan means the lower balcony,
Yes,
not
yes.
the terrace, the lower one. So we used to have our balcony darshan there. Then we used to go to the dining room, then school. Then around 8 o'clock we used to come away from school because mother would be giving blessings at that time. It was general blessings. So we used to get in the queue, have her blessings, take the flower, go back to school. Then at 11:30 school would be over. We would go to the dining room, eat, then go to the ashram immediately. Because at 12 o'clock, all the vegetables that were grown in the ashram gardens, they were brought for mother's inspection in big baskets. So we used to take that opportunity and we used to be also there. So we saw
So
her.
mother would be there.
Mother
Yes,
would come down from the, the staircase beside Aniruddha's room.
yes. Yes.
So she would come down there and there she would see the vegetable and all. And then after that we wouldn't go because she would see the children specially. So in the beginning we used to go up to next door to Sarundu's room, and mother used to see us there. Then maybe our numbers increased. It's not that we made any noise. Our numbers increased, and so she told us to be in the meditation hall. But I remember, and I was very, very envious of one creature. That was a dog, a golden Labrador. His name was Goldie. And he used to go straight away to Surundu's room. He had free access. And you should have seen the look of disdain that he gave us while going.
I never heard that before.
Oh, didn't you?
That's really something special. So,
But you have heard about Gauri's dog, no? Bo? No, you haven't heard. I think that is an interesting story. What happened was that Gauri, she was almost born here. At the age of 6 months, she was brought to Panditji, and she didn't come to the ashram, but Mother and Subna knew about him. Not only that, can you imagine that Subna wrote a letter saying that why don't you give the baby Horlicks?
I remember that story.
That
I
you remember. And mother used to take very special attention and know about her welfare and all. But then when she grew up a little, she was terribly afraid of dogs. Terribly frightened. And mother said that the only thing to do is to give her a dog. And so they got a Dalmatian, and her name was Beauty. So then, at that time, the governor, he was Barrow, Monsieur Barrow. Only the other day I read something about Monsieur Barrow. Someone had commented on him. So, Monsieur Barrow also had a dog, a Dalmatian. And so they mated, these two dogs. And then 6 pups were born. And then, naturally they couldn't keep all 6. So which one to keep? So they took all the pups to Surundu's room. And all the pups were playing about, but one pup went on looking at Surundu. So mother gave him the name Bo, Beauty's son, Bo, and Bo became Gauri's companion. And now Gauri absolutely loves animals and...
Yes, I know. Yes. Oh, what a beautiful story. So, did you write to mother, or did mother talk to you from time to time?
She talked a little, but there, my nature, I'm rather of a shy type. I'm not a very forward type. So, although I knew that some children used to regularly send a notebook to mother and they used to ask mother questions, mother answered, or sometimes some even mathematical problems, mother used to help them with, and all that I knew. But I never felt like doing that. But only this much I knew that mother, in her own way, she had her eye on me, and she had given some good comments about me. That's all I know. But then, what I enjoyed is, really speaking, and what in the beginning I feel attracted me to Pondicherry was the amount of freedom I got. It's unbelievable freedom, really unbelievable. When I was in Calcutta, I was not left alone anywhere. Even when I went to school, a servant would accompany me, take me to school, bring me back. But once I came here, I could go about anywhere at all. And of course, Pondicherry was very safe at that time because we didn't have any cars, no motorcycle at all, a few cycles, but that's all. So we had the freedom of the whole area. And we used to often go out for long walks and roam about. Then this part is also very interesting. Mother used to give another darshan at 8 o'clock in the evening. That was known as the evening darshan, and most people used to come. But somehow or the other, due to her work or I don't know what reasons, that darshan time started becoming later and later. So from 8, it became 8:30, 9, 9:30, 10, and just to go forward, I think the record was broken when she came at 3 o'clock in the morning. And soon after that, that darshan stopped. Once even Swamindu had sent word, we were all waiting. At 12 o'clock, Swamindu sent word that mother is in trance, so she won't come down. Now what happened is that we used to wait for mother, and naturally we used to play, we used to chat. We were very small at that time. But then our studies used to suffer. There was no time to study. So what we started doing, of course those who lived in the boardings or those who lived with their family, there the parents didn't allow them. But people like me, who was all alone, I could do whatever I liked. So I used to wait in the ashram, but then I used to take my school books and do the homework and everything while waiting for her. Now, some ashramites, because they would have to start their duty early in the morning, so they couldn't wait so late and then again start their duty. So they would tell us, all the boys, some of the boys who used to be very regular, that when mother comes down, immediately inform us and we'll come back from our house. So I still remember, the moment mother would come down, I would take my cycle, go round and would say, mother has come. And the whole place was quiet. And a kind of announcement, mother has come. And then they would all come out of their houses and go to the ashram.
Now I want to pick up a little bit on your studies in the ashram, in school, ashram school.
That's it. And then what happened was that I just wanted to finish off with this matriculation. So my heart was not there. Although physically I had to be present, but I didn't want to be there. Anyway, the commitment was there. So in 1949, I passed my matriculation and at once wrote a letter to mother saying that, mother, I want to stay here, but my guardians, they want to take me back. So, then mother replied to me saying that I'll be happy to have you here, and you can tell your guardians about it. So I wrote a letter to them, said that mother doesn't mind if I stay here, so I would like to stay here. And then I became a full-fledged Ashramite from 1949.
Since 49, you've been here.
Yes. No, 49 as an Ashramite.
As an Ashramite,
As an
yes.
Ashramite.
Yes. Now
And then after I finished there, now I came to school. And our school has reached class 7 at that time.
I see.
That was the highest class. So again mother allowed me to join the school. And I found that the ashram school, although it was class 7, and matriculation meant after class 10.
yes.
But the standard here was very high. And they were most gifted professors, most talented professors in the ashram school. So I joined, and I had the good fortune of studying under Teniben, then Shishidha, and later on under Dr. Indra Sen, after the higher course was opened. So,
Well, I would love you to tell us some things about Temiban and
Teniben was a wonderful teacher, wonderful. I've never found anybody so good. And the thing is, on one side she was an excellent teacher, on the other side she was a very hard taskmistress.
oh,
She used to make us work like anything. We had a very small group. In the highest group, we had only about 8 students. And she used to give us homework some 3 times a week, and also very, very difficult work, not mechanical. And then she expected us to learn each and every poem by heart. So whatever we studied, we learned by heart. She herself was a poet, and she wrote very beautiful poetry, but she never showed us her poems, never talked about her genius or anything, but then we could feel the amount she knew and what she gave us.
we have a few minutes before we take a break.
Sure.
And then I want to get into poetry a lot with you.
Lot
But
I
maybe
don't
you
know.
maybe you could tell us about a little more in depth about some of your early teachers.
Oh yes.
That would be nice.
Some I know from reports from others. I was not directly their student, but I heard a lot about them, and I think I should mention them.
Good.
Although I was not directly under them. And one of the persons was Sunila, the musician. So he used to teach mathematics, and he used to teach botany and mathematics. Maybe some other subject before I came, but I knew him about that. And of course he very short time. But then there was another teacher, Nolini Sen. Nolini Sen, two of his daughters are still here, Amita and Chitra.
Yes, I know them both.
You know them both.
Yes.
So their father. Now he was a most loving and lovable person, and the gentlest possible person. Also, he was in the same group as two of the most world famous names in mathematics. One was Dr. Satyan Bose. You may know him as as one of the associates of the Bose-Einstein theory. When Einstein first published his theory of relativity, they say only about a dozen people understood him. But then Sutin Bose happened to be one of them, one of these dozen. And he had written some corollary about Einstein's theory. That's something that would could be connected with that. He had sent it to Einstein, and Einstein had accepted it, and that finds its place in the physics book as Bose-Einstein theory. What it is, I don't know, because physics is not my subject. Okay? But then, and then there was another one, very important person, Meghnad Saha. Meghnad Saha. He is not that well known, but he is also a great mathematician. And this Nalini Chanda used to be in the same group, and their colleagues. And he was a brilliant mathematician. Only thing is that he was himself so brilliant that for him the problems were child's play. Okay? So he used to take them very lightly, and he couldn't understand that how they could be difficult for the students. That's the only thing. But he was really a wonderful man, and I still remember that my problem was that I had studied mathematics in English, but once I came here, I had to relearn everything in French. So I had a little problem. So then, and also I was not that much interested. So I remember a class test, where I couldn't answer a single question. So I submitted the blank paper to Nalini Sen and said, I'll give you a password, but you have to promise that you'll work very hard. Then I said, no, I can't promise. So that was the end of my mathematics.
Let's take a short break.
Sure.